Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's 4:01 on September the 10th at 4 p.m. Welcome, everyone. You should have in front of you the agenda for today's meeting. If we can go ahead and just do a roll call on who's here. So why don't we start on this end over here first, if you want to say your name.
Chelsea Phillips Hutton. Dr. Margaret Sebastian.
Steve Doubt.
Jim Atkins.
Bob Taylor.
Michelle Wright.
Stefan Feliciano.
Joe Venosa.
Philip Joseph White.
Joe Scafino.
All right. So just some housekeeping. This is an open meeting. This is being recorded. It will be televised. I'm sure everyone's aware of that. The other piece of business that I want to cover is that we did have a person on our commission, Hope Wilkerson. She is not going to be able to continue. She's not being able to attend our meeting, so she will not be sitting here at the table with us for this discussion. But we have asked Joe as an alternate to join us. Do we have to have a vote for that?
The council will vote
Okay.
next Tuesday.
Okay. So he sits there for today and then joins us after next week's meeting. Okay. So
So I can't participate yet, you're saying?
I think you can have a little bit of input if you have a question or something, but I think otherwise you're going to have to wait till after you're appointed by the council.
Okay.
Does that work? Everybody clear on that? Okay. I'm going to ask for approval of the minutes from our August 20th, 2025 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Madam Chair, I did have a
Yes.
comment on the meeting
Sure.
minutes, and I sent that to the chair and to Laura Hurley. I did not send that to the group. But there's a comment in the minutes that emails are considered a quorum, so we can't communicate with dialogue back and forth. This statement, as made, as far as it goes, is not correct. You can get in trouble by emails among a quorum of the members. Individual emails, for example, if I sent something to the ladies down here, or they sent something to me, that wouldn't be a quorum. That would just be two of us. That's not a quorum, so that's not even covered. The problem is that you have to make your decisions and have substantial discussion under the Open Meetings Act. That has to be done in an open meeting. If the discussion is not substantial and it's just informational, there's no problem with sending emails even to all of the members, even to an entire quorum or the total membership. So really, and there is a page, a couple pages actually, in the Open Meetings Act manual that the Attorney General puts out that discusses this. And it talks about the fact that it's only when a body's continuous deliberations and votes by text and emails exchanged over, in this case, 2 days, reflected conversation-like interactions that therefore rose to the level of a meeting. In other words, it was like a quorum was acting in a meeting context, but outside of an open meeting. It goes on to say, and they're borrowing from Wisconsin's Attorney General, inadvertent violations of the open meetings law through the use of electronic communications can be reduced if electronic mail is used principally to transmit information one way to a body's membership. If the originator of the message reminds recipients to reply only to the originator, if at all, and if the message recipients are scrupulous about minimizing the content and distribution of their replies. Yes, that's a good suggestion. I know in the case, and I think probably the comment that was made at the last meeting was in reference to some informational emails that I've sent to people with just data. In fact, the data that I send is all from governmental sources, primarily the state of Maryland, and also to some extent the Maryland Association of Counties, MACO. And it's not arguing a point or asking for support, but just providing information. And I think if any other member wants to do that, that's fine. The good thing about it is it promotes more efficient meetings. Because otherwise, if we have to put all our information on the table here when we meet, the meetings are going to be much longer. So in any event, I think that needs to be clarified. And just one further point while we're on this, what I've just talked about not rising to the level of a meeting, that would apply not just to emails, but to anything. In other words, if a group of us got together, a quorum of this group, said, well, let's go over across the street and have a drink and really decide what to do, that would be just as improper under the Open Meetings Act as doing it by email or by telephone conversation. So that's a point I think that needs to be stressed also, that it doesn't, the rule about acting as a meeting but outside of a meeting, I know this is a little confusing, that applies to any kind of interaction between a quorum of the body. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
That's great. Mr. Taylor, I appreciate you bringing this up, and I appreciate you
Yeah.
trying to clarify everything for everyone. I think the intent of the conversation was to make sure that we did not violate the Open Meetings Act. We are here we've been charged by the county council to have discussions openly and honestly, without, any kind of negativity, no negative tones. I want everything here to be positive. I want it to be up and above board. I want it to be done professionally. And, none of us are here to be the email police. And I want to make sure that at the end of this process that we have followed all the rules properly. So as far as emails can be distributed, but if we start responding to those emails, and a number of us do that get us qualified as a quorum, then we are in violation, as I understand it. And that was the only intent of that conversation. It was not to say that we couldn't send emails, but I want to make sure that we follow procedures and don't get caught in a situation that we don't want to be in. So I do appreciate you bringing that up and
Can I
clarifying
make
that
one
for us.
other just general
Sure.
suggestion? If we do send any, and I think I've copied Laura on the ones I've sent, I can't swear to every one of them, but because I think there's been 2 or 3, but copy Laura on it too. And there's no reason that they can't be posted and put into the record of information that's been submitted to the body, any more than if some citizen sends something in, which they can do too.
Sure.
You know.
And if anybody has any questions about the Open Meetings Act, any questions, clarification, anything like that, I'm sure Ms. Hurley will gladly send the link and we can all look it up and read it and get a clear understanding if we need to. So, anybody else have any comments they want to make related to this topic?
Yeah, I have a question. So if the information, if it's just attachments like information for the group to consider, why not hold off on sending that prior to the meeting and just sending copies and distribute to each of us? The thing that I want to avoid, just like you, is the violation or the impropriety of it, because you don't know what people look at and they say, oh, wait a minute, he sent an email, not you per se, Mr. Taylor, but any one of us send the email. And then let's say in the body of that email, I give my opinion. I want to avoid all that. Let's have the discussion in this room and not out in the ether. That's my opinion.
I'd like to second that by saying that I'd prefer to receive information that we've requested as a collective during these meetings, and not necessarily ad hoc information.
Is that pretty much a consensus for the group that we were all seeing at the same time? I think we're having meetings often enough where we can have the discussions in this room. And if we need to speed up the process, we'll speed up the process. But I think we've given ourselves enough time to have the conversations, dedicate the time that it's going to take to get to the conclusions and present to the council on time.
Actually, I myself don't plan on sending an email out to the group, but if someone does, I don't have a problem with that. And if there's anyone on the group who doesn't agree with that, then they just simply would ignore it. And just like I did last meeting, if you have something to present, request to the chair to have enough time to present it. But I'm okay with someone sending it out. Does not mean I'm going to read it. I'm allowed to ignore it,
You can't control what people send you in the email, as we've all learned in life.
Well,
Can I just say that I would prefer to not receive emails. I have about 8 emails that I'm trying to manage. And so any additional emails that have larger attachments than a page that are from committee members that could just do the presentation while we're here is more appropriate. That's a lot of information to process, to ask questions about. The email that we received from you, that it had a lot of meaning to it. And maybe you weren't meaning to have an opinion in said email, but I do think it's appropriate if you have those perspectives to just bring it to the meeting. When we get to 2 or 3 pages, single space, that's a lot.
Well, the other option that you have, because you have opinions on both sides, and I certainly don't want to put more work on Ms. Hurley than she already has, both with this group and with the council, but if you have something that you want everybody to know, send it to Ms. Hurley, and she can put it in the briefing or the agenda email that she sends out, and then
I agree.
it's all part of it. I'm sorry.
I think she's used to it.
The compromise is more work for Ms. Hurley.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we've all voiced our opinions. Are we all okay on how we're going to move forward? Okay.
Vote on the minutes.
Sure. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you for that discussion. Okay, at the last meeting, Mr. Taylor wasn't able to get off the plane on time to, because he was busy enjoying a vacation. But I think he would still like to kind of just go over the information that you had shared and give us some highlights. And so I'm going to turn it over to you to do that.
Yeah, I think what, in my view, is probably the most significant thing we need to consider for these salary matters, and this would be the executive, the council, and also the sheriff, is essentially the position of Wicomico County relative to the other Maryland charter counties. We could look at all 24 other jurisdictions, but I think we can probably eliminate half of them or more and bring it down just to the ones that have county executives. I think that's a total of 9 counties, if I'm not mistaken, not including Baltimore City, which has an executive. It's the mayor, but it's the same as a county executive. I'm leaving Baltimore out for my analysis because it's so different in Baltimore City. But in any event, I've started with 3 counties, and I selected those 3 counties, Cecil, Anne Arundel, and Frederick, because they've had recent charter changes, or not charter changes, but salary changes with regard to their elected officials. In Cecil County, for example, back in 2 years ago, in the 2024 election, they had on the ballot to increase the salary of the county executive, which is currently $98,000. It was then, it still is, to $130,000. That was defeated. So the county executive in Cecil County through 28 will make still make $98,000. At the same time on the ballot, there was a question to increase the council salary to $35,000. That would be a 40% raise. It was previously $25,000. That passed. So that's what happened in Cecil County, and that's what their current salaries are there. In Anne Arundel County, it was not done by a commission like we did it, nor was it in Cecil. It was not done differently. Not every county has a charter review commission. That's just the way it is. The state law says you can do it. It doesn't say you have to do charter compensation reviews like we're doing. But in Anne Arundel County, they have a personnel board. And the personnel board recommended this past year, within, now I'm talking 2025 now, increasing the salary of their county executive to $220,000 plus a COLA. That didn't go through. What was approved by the county council there was a variable for the next 4 years, a variable step increase in the salary, and it would average $184,500 over the 4 years. That's a 30% increase. That's Anne Arundel County. Their council salary was raised in 2022 to $45,000 and change. That has not been changed this past year. Frederick, they did do it by a compensation commission like ours earlier this year. The commission recommended $162,000 for their executive. That would have been a $25,000 or 18% increase. However, what was approved, again, was a variable step increase over 4 years, averaging $149,000, which is an 8.4% increase. The council's salary was increased to $37,250, which was a 6.4% increase. Now, those are only 3 of the 9 counties, and I've begun to look at the others. There, I think, is 1 or 2 other counties that are currently doing compensation review. I believe, and I could be wrong about this, I think it's Baltimore and Howard. And I've begun to try to put together some numbers using the data that I sent out for Cecil, Frederick, and Anne Arundel in the emails that I sent, based on such things as the population, of course, the growth rate, population in municipalities, which is a big factor. This varies very significantly from county to county. Wicomico County has one of the highest percentages of the population that live in municipalities, and that's at 45%. And that's significant because essentially the county does very little in those municipalities. So in a way, you can look at it, we have 106,000 current estimate population. If you take 0.45, take that out of it, the population that's outside of the municipalities is more like about 60,000. Whereas opposed to Howard County and Baltimore County, there are no municipalities. Everything, Howard County's population is now about 340,000, all outside, there's no municipalities. Baltimore County's over 1 million. So the scope, what I call the scope of the county government, is a lot different. Laura has gotten, I noticed in the briefing book for today's meeting, the number of employees, I think, in a couple of counties, Cecil and what is the other one, Frederick?
Frederick, yeah.
I guess you didn't get anything from Anne Arundel, but I think we need to get that information because that's another key factor, is how big is the county government that's being administered by the county executive. I know for a fact that in Baltimore County, the police department, we don't have a police department, they do. Including their civilian members of the police department, it's about 2,000. It's over 1,900. I don't think Wicomico County employs that many people, period, do they? Even full-time, I don't know, what was it, about 1,200, 1,000, 1,200, something like that? So, I mean, there's a huge difference in the size of county governments throughout the state of Maryland, and particularly among the charter counties, because you have those 5 big metro core counties, PG, Montgomery, Baltimore, Howard, and Anne Arundel. I mean, Anne Arundel's over 600,000 now. I mean, these are much larger counties than we are, and they have a lot more employees. Other things, of course, are the income. Household income, I've got those figures in there per capita. We're one of the lowest in the state. I think we're the 3rd lowest in income level. And that makes a big difference in how much income tax can be generated. No matter what you set the tax rate at, it's the income that's being generated by the people that applies to. And just as you know, we're almost at the maximum rate in the state anyway. We can't go up more than about 3% in our income tax rate, even if we want to. So that's another factor. Another factor worth looking at is the average weekly wage. This is in state data. That's where I got this from. I didn't make it up. Our average weekly wage of wage earners here is a little over $1,000. In Frederick County, it's let me look at mine. It's almost $1,300. In Anne Arundel County, it's over $1,400. So, I mean, there's a huge difference in the amount of revenue. Home sale prices, to me, probably the biggest factor in cost of living differential between counties and areas is the cost of homes. I mean, cars, gas, more or less, it might be slightly different across the bay, but it's not a whole lot different. Wages, yes, for service industry, physicians, people who come clean, mow your lawn, whatever, it's a little higher there, that's true. But the big difference is home sale price. And I can say this because I've sold homes across the bay, and I know what they sold for and what they would sell for here. And it's at least twice as much across there. Our average home sale price, and this is from the Realtors Association, in 2023 was $250,000 here. Now, these are sales through realtors. This doesn't include foreclosures. In Howard County, it's $560,000, over twice as much. Like I say, I mean, that's probably the biggest factor in cost of living. Then you get to the assessable tax base, and you look at those figures, and the other counties that are listed here, and I'm going to pass this out, they have much higher assessable bases because there's much more non-residential development there, manufacturing, industry of various kinds. When you look at it, it's just a completely, I mean, when you drive across the bay, you see it. I mean, I'm not telling you probably anything you don't know. But it all relates to how much income can be generated by the county from income tax and personal property tax. And I'm leaving the tax cap out of it. Doesn't make any difference. You have to have the assessable base to begin with. And it's much, much different across the bay. I won't go into the figures, you can look at them. But I've also got figures on then the general fund revenue that we get. And that's, of course, affected by these tax bases that I've mentioned. And look at the difference. I mean, it's like night and day. The other thing I think we have to be very careful about is the dependence of this county in particular on financing from out of the county. In other words, grants and state funding. And just for example, I've used the public school budgets, and this is, again, state data. We have, for example, our county share of our public school budget last year, 24, was less than 20%, 18.3%. The state share was over 70%. Then you compare that to a county, for example, like Howard County, 52.4% comes from the county sources. They fund that. Only less than 25% from the state. So what this shows you is our dependence on this money. Now, why is that important? Look at the state of Maryland. Look at its fiscal position. Moody's, that does the bond rating, Moody's Analytics, has just issued a couple weeks ago an analysis of every state, their fiscal position, and they're predicting we're at high risk in Maryland for a recession. They've looked at every state. And when you look at what's happened, and Mr. Holloway can speak to this if he wants to, look at how they've cut us the last couple of years. And that's not going to go away because under President Trump, they're laying off federal employees. And guess which state is getting hit the most in the whole country? It's Maryland. Virginia's a close second because when you look at where Washington, D.C. is, it's self-explanatory. So I think we have to consider all of these things in our salary recommendations. And when you come right down to it, it don't look too good. Now, I'll pass out what I've got a draft of what I'm going to do as a county comparison. It's just a draft. I only have certain counties. I was up until 1 o'clock last night doing this. And you'll notice that some of the numbers are bold and some of them aren't, and that's because I was cutting and pasting from these state documents, and some of them are bold and some of them aren't, and I just didn't realize it. But there's a few copies there, and I got a few copies for down this way. I think I got enough here. And there's a couple more if you need them. I got a couple copies if anybody wants them from out in the peanut gallery.
Thank you.
I got one.
Thank you much.
Make sure.
There's two for
Anybody need one? Everybody
Yeah,
got one?
I need one. In any event, it just gives you an idea of what I have in mind, and I'm certainly open to suggestions. by email, by telephone, or by carrier pigeon. And
No, we don't have those.
as I am planning to
They cut
stick
the budget for carrier pigeons last year.
I am planning to stick the other counties in there, the other counties that have county executives.
I don't mean to interrupt you,
Yeah.
Mr. Taylor, but I think, and you weren't here at the last meeting, but I think unless I'm wrong, I think the consensus of the group at that time was that the group was willing to compare Wicomico with Anne Arundel, Cecil, and Frederick, were the three counties that the group decided that they wanted to use as a comparison with salaries and individual income, medium incomes, and everything else. So I don't think.
Well, I'm going to make the suggestion that I think that we ought to consider the whole broad spectrum, and I will give the numbers. If people don't want to look at them, that's their privilege, prerogative. But I think it makes a lot of sense to look at what is going on across the board.
Can I just ask
I've included Hartford and Howard because they are the two counties that are smaller of the counties that are not in those three that you just mentioned. Once you get to the other counties, they're all over 500,000, as is Anne Arundel.
I think we had a couple of.
I'm sorry, just to maybe figure out a way forward on this, because I feel like we're coming to an impasse with some of this. My question is simply this: how fundamentally different does this put us in our deliberations if we include these additional two counties versus the original consensus we had?
The answer would be, I don't see how there's any difference. I mean, you're just looking at more information.
And if I may, is there a methodology that's been developed to translate this into quantitative data that we can use to determine salary increase?
Well, I think that we do that. That's our judgment. Yeah, there's no formula that's out there that's in some book, as far as I know. But, I mean, we have to look at what other counties do, for example. That's general information. And then secondly, why they do it and where they stand fiscally, how they generate their money, what they can generate, and how they spend. So to me,
There is another section on our agenda for general discussion. So if we let the rest of the meeting flow through and then circle back to whether or not we would consider to add more counties, I think that would be more economical of our time. But, I still, as I presented last week, I still feel firm, as we all had decided, that the Wicomico County and those other three definitely deserve some comparison. And then if there's discussion about adding other counties for a specific reason, I think at the end of our meeting, that would be more appropriate.
Is there anything else that you wanted to highlight out that?
well, I'm just passing this out as a sample. I still plan to stick the numbers in, and we can look at them, and if
Yeah,
people don't consider them,
Right, if
they
you
can
wanna-
do what the gentleman here did, and he just folded it. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, if you want to just, provide additional information with those numbers for those, from those counties, everybody would have that to look at and take it into consideration. We did have the conversation at the last meeting about what counties we wanted to compare, and Mrs. Hurley's done a great job in trying to gather that information for us. So I want to make sure we have enough time. We've got about an hour left to make sure that we allocate enough time to do that. So thank you, Mr. Taylor, for all your time and effort. I appreciate that. So we did get 220-some pages of information.
We did.
Mrs. Hurley was trying very hard to provide what we asked. I'm hoping everyone had time to look over that. Did everybody have time to look over that information? Everybody have questions and comments to make relevant related to that information? Does anything stick out to you that you want to point out right now?
Just a thought on the numbers that Laura got, on the number of employees in the other counties, and of course, we need that same information for Wicomico so we can compare, even if it's just the three counties that people seem to think are sacrosanct. I think we need to get that, Laura, and just a suggestion, I know sometimes when you ask people in a county how many county employees they have, they include the sheriff and the state's attorney because they are county offices in name, even though they're not county employees from a administrative standpoint. we pay the salaries, but they're not really, the county pays the salaries, but they're not really county employees in the sense that the county doesn't control them. So just make sure that it's straight. And since we're going to do the sheriff's salaries, I think we need to get the information from the sheriff's offices. And I say that because in Maryland, there's a difference in sheriff's offices. Some sheriffs maintain the county jails, some don't. In Baltimore County, for example, since they have, and 5 other metro counties, since they have a police department, the sheriff's office doesn't do much besides courthouse security and serving warrants. The police department and the jail are county functions there, just like our jail here is a county function. So,
Madam Chairman, there was, to answer your question, having looked over what Ms. Hurley sent, and something I had mentioned last week, and in retrospect, I think I was a little bit off. I did the household income, and I see she put on here the per capita, and I actually think that's a better measure than the household. And then to one point Mr. Taylor made earlier when he was going through his numbers, and I did include it in my presentation last week, and I think it's very pertinent, is the cost of owning a home. Because I think for most of us, that's the single biggest expense we have. So I think that those are 2 pieces of information that were in Ms. Hurley's presentation that are very key. And I like the per capita. If I could go back and change my presentation, it would be the per capita, not household.
Okay, so, I tried to go back through what Mrs. Hurley gave us based on our request, looking at the information that was presented to us by the HR person here in Wicomico. The one thing that I didn't see was number of employees, full-time employees for Wicomico, but I'm sure we can get that number. That's not a hard thing to get. And we didn't really get any response from Anne Arundel. If you look at, for departments, and again, I think at the first or second meeting, I had asked that we focus on county executive first and then move to county council and then move to sheriff, so we could just focus on the county executive position for today's discussion. As far as departments, what I totaled up, and I hope I'm right, was 17 departments for Wicomico. Cecil County had 15 and Frederick had 36. So the executive is managing those numbers as far as departments are concerned. As far as employees, full-time employees, Cecil County had 719. Frederick had 2,783. We'll get the number for Wicomico. Looking at salaries, we're currently paying $107,000. Cecil was $98,000, and I think that's going to stay the same until 2029 when it's, I think, up for further discussion. Frederick, I think was at $137,000. And when I looked at residents for Wicomico, I had about 104,000 residents. Does that sound about right, Mr. Holloway? Not to put you on the spot. Cecil is a little over 103,000, and I didn't see a number for Frederick. And then looking at benefits, for the most part, we're providing very similar benefits when it comes to health, life, supplemental, pension, dental, vision, cars, phones, laptops. They're similar.
I take exception with that because Wicomico County, I don't believe Cecil or Frederick listed a vehicle for the county executive.
I had Cecil down for a car, but maybe I'm wrong.
I could be.
But I thought that I had read that they had a car for Cecil County, but maybe I'm wrong. Correct. Uh-huh.
There's several departments that the county executive does not oversee.
Okay.
And Mr. Taylor mentioned Sheriff's Department, State's Attorney, and Health Department.
I just counted the positions that were given to us from our last meeting from the HR department. I can look back and see if, you said the sheriff and state's attorney?
We funded, there are 3 large departments.
Okay.
Cut out.
Okay. I see the Department of Corrections.
I wanted to bring it here.
Yep, I appreciate that. Make sure we're clear on what we're saying here. I don't see state's attorney or the sheriff in this stack. So, but just for point of clarity, that's great to know. Yes, thank you.
Michelle?
Yes.
Just on the county population, the numbers that are on the thing I passed out there from the Census Bureau, they were the estimates as of July 1, 2024, were a little bit more than the number you gave. We're at 106. This is an estimate, of course, 106 and change. And of course, any census data is actually an estimate. They don't go out and count every single nose.
Okay.
They try to, but they're not perfect.
Okay.
And on the Cecil County, in the briefing book, it says that the elected officials get health, dental, vision, life insurance, pension, retirement, but only the sheriff has a take-home car. So that would imply to me that the other departments don't.
Okay, so I want to open up to discussion as far as, we want to have a thorough conversation about what is the fair pay for the job that's expected for Wicomico County's executive. We've got data in front of us. Mrs. Hurley has provided that information. I'm hearing, we need to look at per capita. I'm hearing we need to look, maybe look at or not look at household income. Mr. Taylor pointed out, departments that have been cut that aren't fully funded from the state anymore, those kinds of points.
Ms. Chelsea asked for some sort of like mathematical, equation. I mean, one thing I see is Cecil County's executive has a similar number of departments, maybe not exact. We don't know even our exact number, but similar to us. They have a higher household, median house cost, and their executive actually makes less than ours. For me, I'm not proposing that our executive make any less than they do now, but considering that the other qualifications and the number of departments, and then you take into account another piece of the math would be the population that lives in municipalities. Our executive does not have to manage things like water and sewer for at least half of the county. We don't even have a county-wide water and sewer, although we're setting one up. So to me, there's some data points that say that Anne Arundel County, if you take their executive salary in Cecil, I believe our $107,000 for our executive is actually very much in line.
Open it up for discussion.
Just point out a couple things. Anne Arundel County is also one of the metro core counties that has a police department as well. That's why I'd really like to see the number of employees in Anne Arundel County. Call them up and say, pretty please.
So I did email them, then I did a follow-up email, and I didn't get a response to either one.
Okay.
So I can.
Okay. I'm in contact with an attorney up there. I'll see if I can get him to get on the
Let him
case.
know.
But
Shall Sure, please do.
County executive, so I've been around a long time, as you can tell. I was first elected when the first county executive came in, Rick, and I went through the election procedure. County executive was touted at that time as being a champion for the county. The county executive has director, assistant director, and then office staff. And that was $85,000, and they thought that was plenty because what they were going to do is just be out here, what do you want to call it, shaking hands and hugging babies, and champion for the county. It wasn't it wasn't supposed to really be a management position because that's what the director that she hires does, and they're paid well over. So that pay started at $85,000. Now it's gone up to $107,000. I understand. That's the history as I remember.
Correct.
I think we've seen different changes over time.
And for clarification, that increase was done in 2022? Okay.
Last review.
The last review, okay.
And I spoke about it last time, and I'll speak about it again today, and I'll probably speak about it at each meeting. But if you look at the individual medium income in the county, the current executive is making almost 3 times as much as the average citizen in the county who's working.
I would make one comment on that. Per capita includes every man, woman, and child. So, when you take the children out, that's why I think the per capita income is not the best figure.
Well, I'm just looking at the individual medium income for this county is $35,949.
That would mean everybody's in poverty.
Well,
But
the poverty
that isn't-
rate in this county is, I believe, in the 30s.
15%.
15%.
15%, yeah.
So,
But that depends on the family size. So I hear what you're saying, and I also hear what Mr. Taylor is saying. Like, when you include children who don't have income, that's not a fair gathering of who is actually making money. But I don't think that's a realistic thought process, that per capita is our entire population.
Well, I will say this, though. I mean, the per capita amount, when you include children, doesn't vary much from county to county. It does vary some, true. But the rate of children as a percentage of the portion of the total population in a county is about the same. The Census Bureau has that data. I don't have it with me, but you can get it. But to me, and I don't want to argue this too long, but to me, the most important factor, and I've got it in my list, are households over $100,000. Because I think actually household income is more important, because that's how you base your economy on your household as an individual, not on per capita by and large. And look at the state data for us now this is from the Census Bureau, 31.4% of the households in Wicomico County have an income over $100,000. In Anne Arundel County, it's almost 60%, just about twice as much. In Frederick County, again. So, I mean, it really shows you the difference in wealth in these counties on an income basis. It's enormous.
I generally agree at this point that household income is the more logical number for a lot of reasons, but putting that aside for the moment, and I apologize, I may have missed this, but in the analysis of the executive compensation, beyond the issue of the vehicle, are there any sort of auxiliary budgetary perks that the executive in this county gets versus other counties? For example, a stipend for particular travel, things of that nature. I just want to make sure that we don't miss those things too.
Not that we're aware of, not that we've been given at this point.
Okay.
Just looking down the agenda, I want to make sure we kind of follow suit. We've talked about, a little bit about the information that's been given to us as far as health care. We did get information about the health care benefits for other counties. Is there anything that stuck out to you as far as health care benefits that was different, that would cause you any kind of
All
heartburn
pretty
or anything?
comparable.
Not for the executive. I think when we go back to do the council, there was some differences, but not for the
All right.
executive.
And then looking down at the comparison, looking at the questions Mrs. Hurley had emailed, and then they responded with some answers to the questions, whether related to laptops, cell phones, take-home vehicles, those kinds of things. Is there anything that stuck out to you that you want to discuss and highlight from that information? Okay, I don't see anything on that. Okay. Also was given to us, it was brought up that, trying to figure out who do we compare ourselves to, and we did talk about other counties, but we also talked about nonprofits. And so we received a lot of information, the tax records for the nonprofit groups. So Easter Seals, the Arc of Central Chesapeake Region, Chop Tank Cooperative, Delaware Electric Cooperative, and the Greater Salisbury Committee, and then the Community Foundation. We did receive information from that, the main thing that was highlighted out of that was the gross receipts, the number of employees, and what their leaders make annually. Is there anything that you want to talk about, highlight, discuss related to that?
I'll make my comment. I think it's mostly meaningless, and here's why. Let's look at, for example, the Community Foundation here in town. They manage a heck of a lot of money. They do a good job. They're professional. They don't have a lot of employees, but the persons that run that have a heck of a lot of responsibility, and they're chosen because of their skills in doing that job. The idea that somebody like that is going to leave and work as the county executive, in my sense, is just nonsense. And that goes for private employees, too. Most people, I know and I suggest probably Joe White, I mean, we were in small businesses. We could not, if we left, at least in my case, if you left and went 4 years to county executive, when you came back to your business, you wouldn't have any clients. They'd be gone. I mean, it's, from a practical standpoint, it's just meaningless. And in addition, as I mentioned, these people are picked for skills, for certain skills, one of which in private industry is making a profit. In your business, you don't make a profit, you don't have your business. That's not necessary in the county government. They don't run a profit, don't have to generate a profit.
Well, like Chop Tank, for instance, at one time we had a council member who was simultaneously on the council and on the board at Chop Tank. And somebody who's in the turf business like me, someone I've known outside of government. I also know that he did not show up to a lot of the council meetings here because that paid more. It didn't, like, Chop Tank might be nonprofit, but I don't think they compare well to, say, some of the other nonprofits, because things like electric cooperatives, even hospitals, there's a lot of assets under management there. They're much more complex than even maybe the government is, and they also have a lot of money. The other thing, like with the community foundation, a lot of those folks have to be very skilled in fundraising. We don't ask our county executive to go out and ask for donations. That is not part of that job. I know that's something that's big on what you have to do, Mr. Feliciano, and I know it's something that some of the other institutions like Salisbury University have to do, but we don't ask any of our elected officials to go out and raise donations.
Just for the record, Salisbury University has a foundation that is completely separate than the university. So the foundation for Salisbury would be doing fundraising, but not the university. Just some context.
I understand.
But the president of SU does fundraise, and she is not part of the foundation, though.
That's
too.
one person.
No, but that's the primary job of a university president, or at least part of it is fundraising.
And
Not primary, but regardless of what we're saying,
Yeah,
we're
regardless,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
a nonprofit in name. We're not talking about a business in name. And so I hear what we're saying. If we're comparing nonprofits, that's an actual equitable comparison, because that's what a nonprofit is.
I would just disagree. I think it's a good data point, but I don't think it's actually equitable. I think that there's some comparisons that could be made, but I don't think it's a 1-for-1 ratio. Just for instance, if SU needed to hire a new president for the university, they could do a nationwide search from coast to coast, even outside of the country. If we're looking for a new executive or a new council member, we must look within the 107,000 people that live in this county that are of age, of those that are of age. So I do think that's different.
I'm sorry, I apologize, go ahead.
So in comparison, so nonprofits, we don't go into nonprofits to make money. We serve the community that we serve. So these public election, the people that are elected to be our officials, they're not in it for money. They're in it to serve the community and do the best they can for the community. So yeah, it might not be equitable, but there's an intent on why these nonprofits start and why people join committees or elected officials. It's not to become rich. It's to serve their communities.
And I just bring up that Salisbury is a different beast. That's a different industry. They're a part of a university system of the entire, like there's so many different things. And so that's not an equitable, we're not looking at that. We're looking at nonprofits. So bringing in, well, Salisbury could do this, that's not the same thing. We're looking at these that we have in front of us with the salaries of the people that we have in front of us with their names and their information. So if we're saying, well, hey, look at them, they get paid more, that's not an equitable comparison. Well, hey, they're in a nonprofit and they may have access to more grants, but I would veer to say most government officials, now you can look and see what grants they're available for, but it just depends on what options they have for funding. So those are two different things. Like, that's why I said I think this is actually good information. Maybe you don't, and that's okay, but I do think it's good information for us to at least know.
I think another aspect of this is you can look at these higher salaries that they pay across the Bay, particularly in the metro core counties for their executives. Have they really drawn a lot of people from private industry or nonprofit to give up a job at a high salary to become county executive? I think the answer is no. They're mostly career politician type people. So I think that that's sort of the acid test here. You're not going to see people leaving for a job that has a 4-year term and then you have to be reelected to leave a profitable business, particularly a small business or even a large one. I mean, you couldn't leave a senior management position in Purdue for 4 years and expect that position to still be waiting for you after 4 years if you didn't get reelected. Ain't going to happen. So,
But to that point, if you were the CEO of Easter Seals and you wanted to leave Easter Seals for 4 years to serve the community, because just like you said, Ms. Feliciano, I agree with you that people who do nonprofits are doing it for the service side, but also people who work in government are doing it for that, to serve the greater good, or at least most of them. I think there's always that. I do agree with Dr. Sebastian that comparing it to private business is an unreasonable comparison, because to me that is outside, and Mrs. Wright or Madam Chairman would know that as well. I don't know that that's ever going to work, and I do think that the nonprofits are a data point to consider. I just don't think they're one-to-one. Seeing over $200,000 for the CEO of Easter Seals does not necessarily mean to me that that's where our executive should be in that realm.
And I'm going to, she's been waiting patiently. I think she's got a couple
I'm sorry.
comments. I'm going to defer down here, and then I'll come back over to the right.
It's quite all right. Actually, most of the point that I was going to make has been addressed, but, I think it's important to note the scalability of nonprofits and the type of nonprofit that
Exactly.
we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because we have nonprofits in our community that I think would be a comparable one-to-one with regard to the level of work that she does and the skill and knowledge that she needs to bring. Those would be smaller ones. They would probably be more boots on the ground, grassroots type organizations. Easter Seals, I don't think, is a good comparison or anything at that level, simply because of the nature of that sort of nonprofit.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to make that distinction.
Absolutely. I was going to say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you were going to share?
Well, again, Easter Seals and the Greater Salisbury Committee are technically both nonprofits. A Hummer and a 1987 Ford Pinto are also both technically cars, but they're very different. So that's all.
Yes.
I mean, I understand.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
I think seeing the information is different, though. Sure. So if we didn't have the information to know what to compare to, then we wouldn't be in this conversation.
Sure. Yeah, it's good to have.
These are all questions that we had 2 weeks ago, and I think we've been able to get some answers. So, okay, so I'm going to open it up. How do you want to move forward from here? What information, do you need additional information?
I'm sorry, you've been waiting.
Mr. Taylor was asking about the total number of county employees. I have here MACO's fiscal 2025 survey on county employee salaries, and here's a list of all the county employees. both for the county and total sheriff. So it's part of the MACO documentation, so if anybody want a copy, that's here.
Yeah, we got that handout
What is
last,
that number? What is the Wicomico County?
we got that last time in the handout that you gave us from the MACO, yes.
What is
What's the
that,
question?
what is that number for Wicomico?
The Wicomico, 1,228.
I guess pretty close. What is it for Anne Arundel?
8,591. And for Cecil County, 492. For Frederick County, 3,452. And what was the other county we were considering? Howard.
No, not Howard.
No,
Hartford.
Cecil County number is different.
Anne Arundel, Cecil, and Frederick.
okay.
And if you're wondering, it's on page 19 of the last packet.
And in the information Laura got from Cecil, it indicated 700 and some. I forget the exact number. I think I've got it written down.
It does say employees on county payroll only, so I'm not quite sure how they
And I think the
distinction.
numbers that they gave us were full-time employees. That may include some part-time
And that's
employees.
why I think maybe we need to get a little bit more.
So the 719 was for full-time. That was
Might
in
need
the
to drill down a
questionnaire that
little
we had.
further. I'm somewhat familiar with these MACO studies over the years, and sometimes the numbers are a little loosey-goosey,
Yeah.
let's put it that way.
Cecil actually replied to the email, and the specific question is, how many full-time employees does your county have? And they said 719.
But see, my
And that's
concern
a-
is that might include sheriff, or it might include, in other words, because sometimes people think like, well, the sheriff, they're county employees. Well, they're not really from an administrative sense.
But are they funded by the county?
They're funded, but they're not controlled in their work by the county. So,
I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
if they are funded by somebody, regardless of who they're reporting to or who has control over them, if somebody is being paid by the county, then that's what we should be looking at.
well, I disagree. I think it's the number that are actually controlled by the county, because that's what the job is.
Well, that's the thing that I would like us to get consensus on then is, because as I understand it, when we're looking at these jobs, whether it's the county executive, the council members, or even the sheriff, is what are the job responsibilities in relation to what compensation is? Because when we pay somebody, regardless if it's public, private, nonprofit or not, it's based on what are you doing. So as I understand it, that we at least should figure out what are these different county executives actually responsible for, and what is the full benefits package? And that's kind of why I was sort of trying to see, and I don't want to put more work on you, Ms. Hurley, at all, but it did cross my mind, are there any sort of additional things that a county executive in Cecil versus Wicomico would have, like a car, a slush fund for events, let's say, because that, comes with certain executive roles. But I look at all of this through the lens of what is the job that they're doing, and should that be the basis of how we figure out compensation? So, that's all.
I think it's very important that we come to a consensus about that decision-making, and sooner rather than later, particularly if we still have to tackle the county council and sheriff. We're
Yeah.
going to run out of time if we keep circling drains the way that.
We're at 5 o'clock now, so I think we need to.
But I think it's better to get the information we need before we decide anything. And we still may need more information.
I agree with her. I think we should decide what we need. Yep.
That's the key question.
Car,
That's the
additional
weighing us for
budget,
making a
yeah. Additional financial support for auxiliary services, whether it's traveling or, because again, it's my understanding, I could be wrong, but that both the county council president and the executive have some financial resources for attendance of certain events. Again, I could be wrong.
And I would be interested whether, if those benefits are available to the county executive, are they in fact available to any county employee that's traveling for work or things of that nature? Is there disparity between what the county executive is receiving versus
Exactly.
the general
Yeah,
benefits
yeah, yeah.
package for an employee of the county?
And I would say for the employees, if they're in a constitutionally elected department like sheriff or state's attorney, I don't think that they should count towards the county employee head count, because our Madam State's Attorney in Wicomico County is in full control of everyone in her department. The council has no bearing on that, and neither does the executive.
Joe, can you give a little bit of context of why you believe that someone not funded, if they're funded by the county, but elected by someone else?
Sure, yeah, I think that's a fair question. Because at the end of the day, the salary is being paid for the management of that part of the government. And I see this commonly, it's a misnomer, it's one I had a couple years ago. You think that everybody who works for the county, from Parks and Rec to the state's attorney, is in the same bucket. And although we have an executive form of government in this county, our executive does not, like, for instance, our executive controls our detention center. The Department of Corrections falls under our executive. That's a responsibility that our current executive has. But if you go to some counties like Washington County, the executive, or it's not an executive, but the council president there does not have control of the detention center. So they're not apples and apples, because it's not a responsibility of one, but it is of another. But the reverse is true, especially when you're talking about district court, when you're talking about the sheriff's office in Wicomico County. If you look at Anne Arundel County, which has a police department, that county executive has to manage a whole police department. Our county executive does not manage it at all. It does come up in budget time, and I've seen that with my own eyes. But outside of the budget itself, it does not come up.
And that's the same, I guess, the point with mentioning the state's attorney's office. The state's attorney's office is funded by the county and the council and the executive, but they have absolutely no say over what goes on.
Are they included in the numbers for employees?
No, they're state employees, aren't they?
Are
I
they?
need to get clarification
Okay.
on that, as well as from the other counties that responded as well.
So are we generally talking, and forgive me for the simplicity of what I'm about to say, but are we generally saying that we need to compare job descriptions of county executives across the comparison counties as well as compensation?
So there's not a job description per se. They have their charters that identify their
Correct.
powers, and that's what you're comparing.
Yeah, the charter descriptions, and I've looked at them. In fact, I've got a couple here if I can give them to you if you
So
want
the
to.
point I'm making
They're
is
all the same essentially for the job description of the executive.
Well, it
But what the
should-
county government includes is a separate matter. And just if I can give a little background on it, the state's attorney and the sheriff, they're independent constitutional offices under the Maryland Constitution. They're not part of the county government. Now, under Maryland's scheme of things, the county has to pay the salaries. That's just the way it is. So they have to put the money up, but they have absolutely no control over it.
But
That's not
Go
what
ahead,
I'm
go
asking.
ahead, go finish your
Thank you.
statement.
So essentially, what we are saying, what this has come down to, if I'm understanding, and please, by all means, correct me if I'm not, is that there is concern that our executive, dollar for dollar, may or may not be doing more or less work compared to other counties. And so relative to that answer, do we encourage an increase in salary, or it remains the same? Am I oversimplifying that, or is that essentially the conversation?
Well, I
I
think.
would say you're correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
I look at
I
it
think
more
you're
like
there.
we need to know what the scope of the work is. That's what we need to know.
Well,
And then we
it's
make
in
our
this
decision.
packet that we got last week.
Yes.
Right.
It's in here. And it, again, just like we were talking about nonprofits, or at least my opinion, is it's not always a one-to-one ratio, but it would give you a sense.
But I think, at some point, we'll have to make a decision to not continue going down the rabbit hole with all of the different nuances when we're drawing comparisons. And we'll simply have to lean into some level of formulaic methodology for making this determination.
Well, and a little sidetrack to it, in looking at the Mako study, you see what the executives in each county are making. You see what the hourly employees in each county are making. Okay, you will see that Wicomico County is nowhere near the top in the salaries of the same hourlies doing the same jobs. So if the county is telling the employees that you're worth a 3% raise this year, then the county's executive is worth a 3% raise. If her people are not worth any more than 3% for everything they do, then why should that person, he, she, or whoever, be looking at a 10, 15, 20% raise when the other people are getting a 3%?
I'm not sure what that means, but can we have the county executive actually come and talk with us at any point in this process?
We certainly can. We can have her come to the next meeting.
Like, we're having a conversation about a person's salary, but not talking to them or asking them anything about their salary.
Actually, I would open it up to all the living executives, perhaps, that can sort of illuminate the broader perspective, maybe.
We did say in the very first meeting, we weren't going to make this ever about a single person. And I do think that that's still a
Yeah.
valid point. But having someone like John Pissotto, Rick Pilot, and our current county executive, Julie, here, I don't think would hurt, but it would never need to be about this person, because we don't know who we're talking about for 18 months from now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this, I mean, we can certainly have them come and talk about what the job entailed. I mean, what's it day to day to do the job? You know, I want a fair pay for the job that we're asking this person to do.
Correct.
And this is not going to sound probably
It's okay.
the best way, but, you know, I hear all the thing about, you know, average pay, average income, per capita, all these things. But at the end of the day, this person is asked to do a job. That's what they're asked to do at the end of the day.
And
And they should get a fair pay
right,
for that job that they do at the end of the day.
right.
Okay? I understand and I am respectful of the, you know, the citizens of our county, you know, the situations that some of us are in. I respect that and I appreciate it, and, but, you know, at the end of the day, we all want to get paid fair pay for the job, no matter who we are and what capacity we're filling. So.
Has anyone argued to the counter of that? I mean,
No, but,
Yeah.
you know, I'm listening to everybody,
yeah,
and we've got a difference of opinions.
sure.
And I think we're kind of split on some of that.
Well-
But I want to make sure that we drill down and get to, we're charged with coming up with what is a fair salary. Now, if we remain at 107, then we remain at 107. If that's our consensus, great. If we want to do more than that, great. But it's got to be a consensus, and we've all got to agree. I would like to have a consensus, but we have to have a vote. We are going to vote, and whatever that vote is what it's going to be. That's going to be the recommendation to the council.
when do you plan on us taking that vote?
I'm sorry?
Are we going to do that towards the end of the whole
No,
process?
when we're done, we feel we've got all the information about the executive position, we're going to have a vote.
Okay.
We're going to do a report, and it's going to be ready to go to the county council. Then we're going to move to the county council.
But we are running out of time.
But we are going to give the time we need to have that discussion.
So for the purposes of brevity and economy of time, can we agree on a consensus about what we are intending to judge the executive pay by? Because as I understand it, this is where I think we're at. Some people are saying judge them by the work that they do. Others are saying judge them by the context of the county that we're in. I would argue that the context is always different. So I would say let us judge it by what is their job responsibility compared to these other counties that we've agreed on. And because they are similar in economic data anyway, or at least some of them are, we might achieve that issue. Look, I work in a university. I'm very sensitive to the idea of pay imbalance between administration and regular employees. And I don't think we can, I don't think we're sacrificing that by focusing on the job duties.
But
That's my thought.
I agree with your thoughts, but I don't think you're going to get a county to respond and tell you this is what the executive is responsible for. You're going to get a copy of that county's charter that says the executive is in charge of the legislation passed by the county council and overseeing all the department heads. So
Okay, so let's go on that. All I was trying to get as far as more information is, are there any perks that are in the particular executive's role? That's it.
I think that her suggestion is a good one, to have Jolie come and speak with us so that we can gain more transparency around the role. I'll say for myself personally, I've seen her in some meetings and I've seen her shaking hands and slapping babies, right? So a bit more explanation about what she does at a granular level.
I'm not against the current executive coming in, but I do think we set a dangerous precedent by bringing only one in, because it,
We can invite the ones.
I would like it to be, yeah.
We can invite all.
Ideally, yeah, just because that way we can keep it equitable.
And they may have a different perspective.
Exactly,
here at all.
correct, yeah.
Sure, so we could do that at the next meeting. Answer your question as far as, are there any additional benefits or so-called perks?
Yeah.
Clarification on the car question, clarification on full-time employees, does that include sheriff or state's attorney? We'll be able to have that answer to that question. Is there anything else, any other questions?
Yeah, I beg to differ on the thing with having the executive come in. I think that's a total waste of time and unnecessary.
Okay.
We need to do this objectively, not hear a plea.
Thank you for your opinion. So I have another question. Are we recommending actual salary, or are you recommending a pay increase percentage?
We can decide that.
It's either or.
Got it.
That's totally for this group to decide and propose to the county council.
And if I'm correct, even if we decide to go with a pay increase versus a percentage, we can step that out over so much each year for the 4-year period.
Correct.
Okay.
So that question did come up at the last Compensation Allowance Commission, and the response was, if you do a set salary, then that's something that you guys can recommend to the county council. But if you're looking to do the increase, like 2% each year, then that would be a charter change, and then that has to go to the
Okay.
to the voters.
But if you did a salary change with a bump each year, does that go to the charter, or is that part of the recommendation and the county votes it up or down?
Yeah, so I'm just speaking
No.
as to what was
Yes.
said at the last meeting or Compensation Allowance Commission. And that, they didn't ask that question specifically, but
That's what I'm here for.
The charter just gives a dollar amount. So I think if you were going to add that increase.
But the charter is a minimum amount, Laura. In other words, it can,
So that could be.
yeah, it can be exceeded, so it can be done in steps. Now, the steps have to be specific in terms of the dollar amount. It could be 2%, because that would translate to a certain dollar amount, but it can't be based on the CPI. It can't be based on something that would change during the 4-year term.
Dr. Derricker is the one who
Yeah.
provided that response.
Yeah, and I don't trust what he said, and I know him. But let me tell you, the 2 counties that I've mentioned, they did do it in steps.
He's a nice guy.
So it's done. Either Cecil County and Anne Arundel County and Frederick, and they're all screwed up because they've done it that way. And they all have attorneys.
We just get clarification on what the
Yeah.
charter says,
Yeah.
know for sure what.
And look, if we're even going to think about making it so that it would have to go to a vote, I would also like to know what the cost would be to do that, because I don't want to waste any taxpayer money on having a ballot question that has to be printed in the newspaper.
My suggestion would be just to send it to the county attorney and get an opinion.
Yeah.
And another clarification, if you would please, is that the recommendations of this committee are given to the council. They can either accept it or reduce it. They can't increase it.
Correct.
Okay. So that's just something to keep in mind too with our deliberations on things, that the council doesn't have to abide by what we recommend.
I don't think we have the power to make that binding,
What?
what you just said. We can't, the council can do whatever it wants, I believe. They
Isn't that
don't.
what I just said?
No, you said
We-
that
we-
they
we
couldn't
give-
go above our
They can't.
recommendation.
We give the recommendation and they can accept it or deny it.
Right, they can't raise it.
I think they can. I think they can. I'm not certain of that, but we can look
It's
into
in the
it.
prior agenda packet, so you
Yeah.
guys
Yes.
can get it there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We had good discussion today, right? What other questions, comments? Any more information that you want to have available for the next meeting?
We're focusing on the executive.
County
during the next
executive,
meeting.
yes.
Have we scheduled our next set of, I think we have October, but I think we already have to probably plan for one in November at this
We're up
point.
to-
24th.
Yeah, we have 2
We're up
weeks.
to November the 5th in plans.
Is there a November the 5th?
Yes.
Okay. Then
There
I
was.
understand.
So, yeah.
I have the 24th.
Of
September the
September
24th, October the
8th,
8th, and the 22nd.
and then November the
And then
5th.
November the 5th.
Did you want to talk about the CPI inflation calculator?
So that was something that we had asked for, and Mrs. Hurley had provided it for CPI inflation for the county executive, for all the counties. Does anybody have any questions about that?
And just for clarification, you guys didn't ask for that. It was something that the prior commission focused on, so I thought it'd be helpful information, and I just put it in there for you. Thank you.
I think that'd be a good minimum to start with. I mean, if your CPI is saying, okay, that's the same money that you had when say the 107 number. If even the decision to say stay the same in real life, I mean, the same isn't the 107 anymore. That same is the 116. So I think these CPI numbers, I would think that should be a minimum as far as where to start, considering that's December of 22 until July of 25.
Yeah, but isn't the, and I understand your argument or statement, and it's a good statement, but isn't the CPI the same for every person working in the county?
Sure, and I guess counterpoint, so it comes out to be about 3%. And don't know what the COLA was, say for those last few years, but it's always a couple percent. So I would assume it probably averages around that. I'm obviously not 100% sure there. So if you're saying every other employee to mirror something similar, I would assume it would,
Well,
in the broad sense.
yeah, and Councilman Holloway, it was the employees got a 3% COLA and a 2% raise for a total of 5%. So they got a 3% COLA, yeah. Yeah, but the majority,
And then some of the special people got,
yeah.
some of the chosen ones.
Yeah.
I agree, I mean, it makes
Yeah.
sense.
So our next meeting is on what day?
Sorry, I didn't hear what you
Our next meeting is on what day again? Just want to make sure.
I have the 24th,
Weeks from today.
2 weeks
And
from.
it's going to be 4 to 5:30?
Uh-huh, yeah.
All right, sounds great.
Yes.
Did we
And
hit
so-
everything on the agenda?
So does anybody else have anything they want to share at this point? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
That's only in weddings.
No, I echo the chairwoman's comments as far as there's a lot of good discussions. A lot of people have different thoughts, but there's a lot of good discussions, and we're all gonna come to a consensus and decide what we're gonna do.
We going to vote something.
Yep.
That's why we were all picked to voice our opinions, to listen and learn and think
Get
about things a
along.
little differently maybe and work together, and we're going to get it done, right?
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys.
Got a motion?
Do we,
Do I need a motion to adjourn?
Oh, make a motion.
Yeah.
Second it? Yeah, okay. Second.
Always make that one. Everybody says, yeah.
yes,
Welcome aboard.
we are.